Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the Bluebeard's Bride rules by Magpie Games. This actual play is performed by adults and contains adult themes. Our content warnings include gaslighting, body horror, explicit body horror, emotional abuse, mental abuse, tense situations, murder, suicide, gender fetishization, and maternal horror. Bluebeard's Bride is a game based on feminine horror. It is meant for an immature audience. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., which may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. And now, on to the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I am not your keeper or your storyteller this evening, but I wish to welcome you to this very special episode of the Old Ways, and I'd also like to start off by thanking you, the listener, and you, the Patreon supporter in particular. And we really appreciate your listening ears, your support, and everything you do for the show. We literally could not do this without you. And now, I will throw to our host for this particular evening. Rosie, take it away.
Good evening. At the top, I want to let our listeners know that this is a mature game. There will be gaslighting, body horror, explicit body horror, emotional abuse, mental abuse, tense situations, murder, suicide, gender fetishization, and maternal horror. Bluebeard's Bride is a game based on feminine horror. It explores a space that a lot of games ignore and that are generally silenced by society. There will be adult themes. That's the game. Please take care and do step back and love yourselves if it's a little too much for you. Your safety is important to us. And good evening. Tonight we're playing Bluebeard's Bride. If you want to learn more about Bluebeard's Bride, check out the free quick start rules on Magpie's website. This is going to be a 2-part showcase of Bluebeard's Bride. This first episode will be the introduction and creation, and the second episode, our bride will be getting married and then exploring the horrors of marriage. I am Rosie, and tonight, I'm your groundskeeper. Cast, can you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Heather Ashcroft, otherwise known as Valley Girl Heather. I'm a member of the Old Ways podcast, and this evening, I will be playing the part of Animus. I hold on to righteousness with both hands. Others admire my strength and bow to my will.
And hello, my name is Mare. I am also a member of the Old Ways podcast. And tonight for Bluebeard's Bride, I will be playing the Virgin. I seek beauty where there is none. Others seek comfort in my warmth and delight in my obedience.
Hi, my name is Teagan Gilbert. I'm playing the Fatale. I drip sensuality from my lips. Others watch my every move and crave for me to take control.
Hi, I'm Rina. My pronouns are they, them, and tonight I will be playing Mother. I walk with authority. Others ache for my approval and long for me to soothe their wounds.
Thank you, sisters. Once upon a time, there was a very lovely girl from a poor family. A gentleman came into town, a nobleman looking for a wife. Older, and with a beard of an unnatural and enrapturing shade of blue. There were rumors that he had had wives before, but no one knew what had happened to them. He saw the girl, saw her beauty, and her family circumstances. He made her a proposal. Marry me, and I'll take care of your family. Being a good girl, she said yes. She married the man with the blue beard and went home with him to his large, expansive estate. Once there, he gave her a ring of keys, a key to every room, and told her to go explore. Look through every drawer, open every door. It's your house. But do not enter my private chambers. and then he left on a business trip. So the girl went and looked at all the jewels and fine fabrics, the beautiful things she had never had at home. But she kept feeling the temptation of that forbidden door. Finally, her curiosity got the better of her. She put her key in that final door and opened it. Inside were the bodies of all of Bluebeard's former brides. No one can be saved. The difference between the fairy tale and the game we are playing tonight is that my players, all of you, are playing the bride, all in the same physical body. You represent different aspects of her mind in this game called Sisters, and you will be exploring the house in search of tokens that indicate to you whether Bluebeard really loves you and is simply misunderstood, or if he is in fact a serial killer and you are in grave danger. To this end, our players will explore Bluebeard's house as his new bride, facing the horrors of his estate and the fates of his former wives. This is a joint narrative where I, your groundskeeper, guide the bride, made up of the sisters, as she faces terrible choices. The main mechanic that my players will have at their disposal are called moves. You may hear me refer to them from time to time. Next, we're going to do our character creation. Sisters, I will ask you questions. Please answer them. I may ask you clarifying questions. Animus, what are the bride's hands like?
The bride's hands are long, slender fingers. They look lovely from afar. But up close, when examined, you notice the unmanicured nails are just a little uneven in length. Maybe one nail is a little lopsided. The cuticles are a bit worn from work and not being fawned over. The skin of the hands aren't perfectly soft and smooth, actually. They have a little bit of wear to them. And the palms show a tougher layer of skin from the work that she has done, from probably around the house, probably from being out, any work she's done outside of the home, because she doesn't really like being at home.
And what sort of work do you do outdoors?
She does a bit of gardening, kind of trimming things back. It's more of an excuse just to be out of the house and kind of away from her family. So a bit of gardening or being out and about. She took maybe a part-time job at a small shop. She didn't shy away from, the stocking, the more manual labor parts of the shop work, while which she would think is other prettier girls would try not to break a nail or, mess up their hair or anything else. She jumped in and would just get the job done that needed to get done, whether at home or outside of the house.
Thank you. Fatale, what does the bride's mouth look like?
They kind of have their front two teeth that kind of just rest on top of their lower lip. And so you get a kind of reminds you of the actress. I was thinking Billie Piper is the one that I was coming across from early new Doctor Who. That kind of a look there, and it does affect her speech just a little bit in that, and it kind of fits with her regional accent. I think her lips are well kept. They are, she doesn't chew on them.
Thank you. Does anyone comment on the way she speaks? And if so, how does she feel about it?
I think that maybe she hears people snicker in the background sometimes, and she is never quite sure whether that is a a private in-joke or something else going on, or if it's about her.
Thank you. Mother, what is the bride's figure like?
She's very full-figured, very round, heavy breasts, wide hips, childbearing hips, some people would say about them, particularly her family members, whenever they tried to marry her off before Bluebeard came along. She has narrow shoulders, a narrower waist, well-built legs. She's very sturdy and curvy.
And how many times did our bride's family try to sell her off? I'm sorry, marry her off before she met Bluebeard?
They tried to marry her off 4 times before Bluebeard came. It always fell through for one reason or another. At least once was because of her accent. The young man in question laughed at her and said he couldn't possibly live with someone who spoke like that. Other times, it was a simple matter of money, of trade, of not being able to afford the dowry that was asked.
Thank you. Virgin, what do the bride's eyes look like?
The bride's eyes are a bright green, but her lids are often heavy. Her lids are lowered usually with long lashes. Sometimes it might seem as if it was a sultry look, but it's just the way that her eyes rest. At times, she can seem as though she's looking for a long period of time, staring without blinking until that's noticed, and then she'll glance away. Her eyes seem to go more side to side with things than they do up and down. If she's looking up and down, her head would turn within it, but when at rest, her eyes are lowered and glancing constantly.
So she is resting sex face?
A little bit. It's either, are you very tired, or, which would make sense with the constant work that she has, but at the same time, it very rarely seems as though she's staring straight forward. If she's looking some way, she's often looking at it at a scant. So perhaps, it could be some sexy lash eyes.
Animus, what weakness do you give away when others hold your hand?
That she's not as strong as she appears to be, that she projects to be. Her grip, she tries to have it be strong and firm, like she would expect people, like that's what she wants to project for others, but she can't hold it for very long. You could feel, she can be strong at the beginning, but she almost tries too hard to have that kind of image. So it's in the end, if her hand is held long enough, the grip weakens, and you can kind of tell that she just can't maintain that image for incredibly long, but she will keep trying every time.
Thank you. Fatale, how do others keep her quiet?
I think going with the previous theme, I'm going to say that when she mispronounces a word, people will correct her. And that will often just end that sentence or end that part in what she's saying. Other times they'll just speak over her.
Does that stop her from trying to speak? Or do they just go until she's been drowned out?
I think she likely then tries to repeat what she was saying later on, after they finished. And that's frustrating because she is often repeating the first few words of a sentence over and over again.
Thank you. Mother, what do others wish was different about the bride's figure?
They wish it wasn't so attention gathering. There's some jealousy, perhaps, in some places, whether it's jealousy because they can't have her from some of the married men, or from the women who see her as a threat because her figure is so voluptuous and draws attention. She's unaware of this, of how much attention she draws and of how others feel about it. To her, it's just her body, and it's just how she was born and how she grew up, and it doesn't really seem out of the ordinary to her. But others make comments and perhaps stare a little bit too much.
Thank you. Virgin, how do others know you want them when they gaze into your eyes?
When they gaze into my eyes and I want them to know, that'll be more of a forward-looking glance, perhaps a flutter of lashes on purpose. The idea of hiding as if I have a secret, which I may not have very many, but they don't need to know that. But if they get closer, they could find out that I don't have very many secrets, but it's all to lure in, all to entice. A flutter of lashes, perhaps connected with a giggle, trying to let them know without words.
That sounds to me like you, Virgin, are interested in being a lure in certain ways. You want to make others approach you. Is this the case?
It's an attempt. To be honest, it's all just playing with it. I've seen it work. These eyes have watched other women as they attempt to flirt, or if they attempt to seem charming. And from what I've seen, I make my own attempts at it. Maybe not to much success, seeing as the moment that I speak, it all comes undone. But you have to start somewhere. And so for me, starting with the eyes, that's where we begin. So yeah, it would be nice to get it started.
Animus, what are you leaving behind from your provincial life to become Bluebeard's bride?
The jabs and jeers of her family. Mom is highly critical and is constantly pointing out flaws or foibles or devaluing the things that the bride likes, what makes her happy, just under the guise of, I'm just saying, under the guise of helpful advice. Her dad, everything's a joke. Her flaws, her, anything she becomes self-conscious of, or, image like, hey, look who's going back for a second helping of that dessert, nice and fattening. Yeah, that'll plump her up and, entice a husband, ha ha ha, sort of thing. Her younger siblings are not as subjected to it because she's the oldest. She's the younger sister is the pretty one, is the the slender one, the kind of golden child. So for her, when she longs to be away and out to show that she is someone, she's not broken, she's not what they have, their messages have made her feel like. So she constantly is pushing herself to kind of prove to herself, as well as generally to everyone else, but to herself, that she is strong, that she is smart, that she is not a broken thing. So she is leaving behind.
So, would it be a fair synopsis to say that she is leaving behind not just the people who make her feel insecure, but also attempting to leave those feelings of insecurity behind her? This is my new life.
Yes, here is someone who seems to see me as a complete person, as someone who is beautiful, who is strong, who is worth the time and the effort and who sees me as an actual person and not as some kind of either joke or some kind of failure. And I can be the person that I want to be, the person I feel I am somewhere inside that I've been trying to prove that I am. And I don't have to fight to overcome that. So, yeah, trying to leave all that behind and stepping into her new self with this person who, as far as she can see, sees her as a real person.
Thank you. Fatale, what are you leaving behind from your provincial life to become Bluebeard's bride?
I'm leaving behind the parts of my life that I had control over. I'm leaving behind my neatly rowed vegetable garden. I'm leaving behind my carefully maintained bedroom. I'm leaving behind my tools and trades for when I cook. And I'm giving all of that up to now be where someone will do that for me. And now I've lost a lot of the and decisions that I get to enjoy making every day.
Well, Fatale, I hope you come to learn those things. That ability to give up that control becomes a luxury so that you can better focus on Bluebeard. But for now, Mother, what are you leaving behind from your provincial life to become Bluebeard's bride?
Even as I give up control over those things, I am also leaving behind the control of others. My mother, who is domineering, who always orders me about, takes pleasure in organizing my day for me, telling me do this, do that. My father arranging marriages for me and telling me that I will marry this person, and then I don't. But you will marry this person. But you will marry this person. Controlling every aspect of my identity and my existence. I made the choice this time. I chose who I married, and I leave their control behind.
Thank you. Virgin, what are you leaving behind from your provincial life to become Bluebeard's bride?
I leave behind the acceptance of the way things were before. I leave behind the sameness, the routine. I leave behind my family with no true intention of speaking to them again. I leave behind, in some sense, who I was in order to welcome in the newness of who I am now as Bluebeard's bride.
Thank you. Animus, when you first met, what loving gesture did Bluebeard make that won you over?
He stood up for me. So when he called upon me at home and my father made a joke and I protested against it, trying to stand up for myself in front of this gentleman caller, this suitor. And my mother admonished me in some passive-aggressive way. Bluebeard then stood up for me and said, no, she's right. And proceeded to tell them why I was right about what I liked or how I felt. And that would have been probably one of the greatest gestures he could have to win my heart.
Fatale, when you first met, what loving gesture did Bluebeard make that won you over?
I think that he complimented the orderliness of that. I was talking about that vegetable garden before. I think that he recognized the work and the attention that went into it, and that he believed that would be an attention to detail that would serve him and his household well. And him recognizing that meant a lot to me.
Mother, when you first met, what loving gesture did Bluebeard make that won you over?
He spoke directly to me and not to my parents, especially my father. He asked me questions. He seemed interested in who I was as a person versus what my family would tell him about me. And he asked me directly to marry him. He did not go through my father and my mother. He spoke to me.
How did your father react to that?
He wasn't pleased. He didn't like having that control taken from him. But being in the presence of a wealthier man, the only way I knew he was displeased was after Bluebeard left the house for a moment, when he got angry, my father. In Bluebeard's presence, it was just a tightening of the eyes and the mouth and a disapproving glance. But I knew he wasn't happy. And it made me happy.
Virgin, when you first met, what loving gesture did Bluebeard make that won you over?
He made me promises. He told me of a beautiful house, of things beyond what I knew in my provincial life here. He spun stories of greatness and beauty and swore it could all be mine for my hand. And it seemed nice to be able to take the toil and the work and the ridicule. It felt like those promises came to me as a reward.
Animus, what gift did you present to Bluebeard before the wedding? Why did you choose this gift?
I would have presented him with a book of probably some of my favorite stories, things. This would have been one of my interests that I had been ridiculed for. Had been, mom looking at it critically. Why do you waste your time? This stuff will rot your brain. It's garbage. There's no redeeming value to it. My father probably would have joked that it's always somewhere in a book in the clouds, or never on what it should be, finding a proper husband, living a proper lady's life, and that I'd rather marry someone out of a book than an actual husband. Haha. But I would have presented the book of stories to him, to Bluebeard, so that on his travels for work and whatnot, that he would have something to pass the time, to enjoy, to take his mind off of the worries and the woes of the day-to-day living and reality, like it did for me. And that every time he would hold it or read it, or it would be in his presence, that he would think of me and how happy he made me. He makes me. And that hopefully how happy I make him.
These stories, were they folk tales? Can I think of them as traditional sort of grim fairy tales?
They would have been, the stories were probably tales of, adventure and love and romance, and they probably all had at least one very strong female character, whether she was the lead or if she was partnered with a male protagonist, that she would be more of an equal or hold her own. they would, grand adventures and intimate moments, a life that she longed for to have, with not just by her, some by herself, but as with her future partner, husband. This is how she would like to see the world, and not what she was being told or forced into by her family.
Thank you. Fatale, what gift did you present to Bluebeard? Why did you choose this?
I think that I had worked with a friend in town that lived nearby that had a whole herd of dairy cows, and they were running a cheese making business on the side. And I think that I presented him with a big wheel of blue cheese that took a long time to properly ferment and cure and culture into a lovely treat. So that is what I am going to choose to present.
Mother, what gift did you present to Bluebeard before the wedding? Why did you choose this?
I gave him a handkerchief embroidered with my initials in one corner and his in another that I'd embroidered myself. It shows him a representation of being able to run his household, that I can do the things he needs me to do to maintain the house. But it also will remind him of me when he's out, when he's gone. I'm always with him. I'm always safe with him in his pocket. He can't forget while he's away as he carries this with him.
Is the handkerchief, does it have a particular color? Is the embroidery in a specific style? Is it simple? Is it elaborate?
It's elaborate embroidery in blue, and my initials in blue show him a symbol of our marriage, that I am joined to him.
Thank you. Virgin, what gift did you present to Bluebeard before the wedding? Why did you choose this?
I purchased a comb, a carved ivory comb with elaborate detailing of flowers and vines along the handle, as well as perfumes, scented oils. Some would mirror and match those that I have as well. So that something like the scent of sandalwood and ocean water, something that we have that can remind us of things, like the scent of flowers in spring always makes us think of spring. I hope that by presenting him with a scent that is ours, and with a comb to comb it through his luscious beard and his hair, I can do the same with mine, and it connects us as well.
Thank you. Animus, do you trust your generous husband, Bluebeard, or do you hold unkind suspicion? Why is that?
Whatever red flags that may tick some part of the back of, in the back of her psyche, she ignores, because he is the one that she has chosen. He is the one that stood up for her, who shows love and affection when others really did not. And even if something kind of tickles in the back of her thought process, she tries to shut it down, puts it in a box, tucks it aside, because that's just not acceptable. She rationalizes. She does. Trust Yes. Is it 100%? Not necessarily. But she's going to hold to it. She's going to cling to it because he's not her family. He's better than that. So.
Fatale, do you trust your generous husband, Bluebeard? Or do you hold unkind suspicions? Why is that?
Oh no, Fatale trusts him completely. This is an opportunity, really. I mean, they're leaving behind things that they used to have control of. Now they're going to have new things that they get to learn about. They get a new status, they get a new class. It's more about excitement than it is about, and that has just kind of blinded the Fatale to the questions of trust or not trust. Anything that's going to look odd is just going to look odd because of a change in class and structure.
Mother, do you trust your generous husband, Bluebeard, or do you hold unkind suspicions? Why is that?
I have some reservations because he's a man who is talking to me in a way men don't. He is giving me control in a way, the way he spoke to me directly and not to my family, that men don't. It's hard not to be suspicious when he's acting so different from what I'm used to, when he's trusting me with his home unequivocally, so it seems, when he's giving me some power and control in the relationship in a way I've never seen men do. It's hard not to suspect that there's something else there.
Virgin, do you trust your generous husband, Bluebeard, or do you hold unkind suspicions? Why is that?
I trust him so long as he fulfills the promises that he made. I trust that if I see action reflected on what was said, then of course. But having been betrayed before, I am wary and watching. Perhaps not unkind suspicions, but suspicions nonetheless. Doubt, I say, perhaps instead of suspicion. Curiosity to see how it turns out. Very similar to Mother in some senses.
And that is a lovely segue into the next part of our character creation, which is sisterly bonds. This establishes our sisters' relationships with each other. There might be certain parts of ourselves, of our mind, of our way of thinking that are more interconnected than others. Again, I will ask questions and we will work our way around the group. Animus, you hold yourself apart from your sisters, but blank is the only one who soothes you. Explain a time that sister calmed your rage.
That sister is the Fatale. And when Bluebeard stood up for me, for the bride, in front of the family, and even when he later expressed his almost a little bit of anger that I didn't stand up for myself enough, that I allowed them to do that to me. It was the Fatale who was able to step in and using her wiles to bring him back to that kinder, more loving, intimate person that she desperately wants and needs from him. And that is when I realized that the Fatale's methods may be different, but there is definite strength and purpose and usefulness in those methods. And there is almost a synergy of, if the direct, strong approach doesn't work, the situation can still be made to work in my favor through slightly different methods that the Fatale presents.
I'm going to ask you your second question while I have you. Animus, you are envious of blank. Explain why you can never compare to them.
I am envious of the Virgin because the Virgin reminds me very much of my younger sister, the Golden Child. Strength is not valued when it comes to attraction, it seems. Suitors don't seem to, you can be strong in mentally, physically, otherwise. You can be determined, you can be motivated, you can be smart, you can be all these things. But if you are not that pretty, coy, coquettish type, then they don't seem to be interested, or the ones that are not ones that you would want to be with. You're never quite pretty enough. You're never quite sweet enough. You're never quite innocent enough. And in fact, it's discouraged by my parents, who said that if I wasn't, a little bit prettier, or acted a little bit nicer, or acted, not quite so take charge, then, I might actually have a chance at someone actually liking me. So I continue to be very envious of those aspects that the Virgin embodies.
Thank you. Fatale, your sisters are who they are, boring and predictable. But blank has no idea of a woman's true power. Explain why you wish to teach her.
I wish to teach Animus the subtleties of actual power when it comes to, the Fatale's role is one of, in some cases, manipulation, whether it's to get something that you need, or to get the situation around you into a better place or a better position, maybe for the greater good. And so righteous fury, as described for the Animus, is not always the way to get to that. Sometimes it requires a little bit more cunning.
Fatale again. You try to draw in blank with your seductive aura. Explain how you hide your insecurities from her.
I hide my insecurities from Mother because I don't like to look at the things that can go wrong. I don't like to look at and think about the things that might be difficult to achieve. And I don't want Mother to see that my power might be diminished if I admit that I also share all of their concerns.
Mother, you know best and try to guide your wayward sisters, but blank irritates you with their obstinance. Explain a time they undermined your authority.
The Virgin often irritates me with how obstinate she can be. She refuses to see the places where things could go wrong, the places where she needs to be stronger, where she shouldn't bend under someone else's will. She won't listen to me. Once, when my father told me that I was to marry someone I didn't care for at all, and I could see he was cruel. I could see that he would be dominant, that he would accept no questions to his authority, that he wouldn't treat me as a human being. I tried to stand up for us, and the Virgin stepped in and acquiesced to Father's will because he has to know best. And she was wrong.
Mother, you trust blank to have your back. Explain a time they supported you in a time of need.
I trust the Animus because she is also strong. She's the one who steps in the most whenever we have the courage to stand up for ourselves. She backs me up frequently when we need to be strong. There was a time, I remember, when our younger sister was being pursued by a young man who would not take no for an answer, flirting with her, attempting to kiss her, chasing her around the farm. Literally, he saw it as a game. And I knew we had to stand up for us, for our sister. And the Animus stepped in and stood with me and taught our younger sister how to say no. When running away isn't enough. When it's time to be angry. And together we can do that.
Virgin, you trust your sisters, for the most part, but blank blackens your innocence with her every word. Explain how she became your enemy.
Oh, Mother. Mother tries to know best, but it feels as though the serious nature of her tries to cast a cloud on everything that could be beautiful, tries to cast a cloud on every opportunity. Things may not turn out in the worst way every single time. And so, as irritating as perhaps as it may be, trying to shine some light and show that not everything will end poorly.
Virgin, blank often helps you play tricks on the others. Explain a time when she was your ally in mischief.
The Fatale is very creative. I like new things. I like when something shakes it up a little, keeps it exciting. Perhaps we don't go about things in the exact same ways. Perhaps the Fatale goes to things a little further to an extent. For example, finding a new garb, a new dress, a new look. I find it fancy and beautiful. The fabric perhaps was a little garish on one end. And myself, I never would have bought it. Mother would say it would be unreasonable, and Animus would have no hand in putting us in such a dress. But Fatale, something about how Fatale pointed it out that we could make something work with this. So it was a very short-lived fashion for a time, but Fatale's boldness drove me to take a risk, much to Mother's glare and Animus's sighs.
Very good. Now, my sisters, I remind you that you should assign your stats, your 0 and 1, and you should choose a face from the list of proposed face moves attached to your sister so that you have that at your beck and call when appropriate. So the only question that I have coming out of this that was not made clear to me really, how old do we want to think of the bride? It doesn't really matter, but it helps me address certain scenes in certain ways. Is she under 20? Is she in her early 20s? Is she a spinster? AKA 25.
I'd say she's at probably about the latter. You know, has not been, and that's what made Bluebeard so attractive, besides the fact that he would take her away from everything. That she is older and, you know, her father has tried to set her up several times.
That's about what I was picturing as well.
Same.
Excellent. Well, then, dear listeners, that's where we're going to leave you at this point in time. I hope you return for our next episode where we get married and shit goes down. Have a good one.